I want you to picture a face. Actually, you probably don't even need to try that hard because you have almost certainly seen this face everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Literally everywhere.
Right. Think of the iconic unibrow, the dark braided hair piled high, the bright floral crowns. You see this face emblazoned on canvas tote bags at the farmer's market, printed on coffee mugs, on T-shirts all across the globe.
Mm-hmm. We are, of course, talking about Frida Kahlo. Today, she is widely recognized as, this massive pop culture fixture. She's practically a global brand of bohemian chic.
It's truly incredible how ubiquitous that image has become.
It is, but it is also a highly commodified image. I mean, when you turn a human being into a graphic on a coffee mug, you inherently strip away all the rough edges. You lose the visceral, painful reality of who she actually was.
Exactly. And that's why today we are doing a deep dive into an incredible historical breakdown by Anita Louise Art to kind of peel back that heavily commodified pop culture image.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Our mission is to move past the sanitized tote bag caricature and help you discover the fiercely radical, deeply vulnerable woman underneath it all. We're looking at a woman who painted not to become a global aesthetic, but quite literally to survive.
Right. And setting the stage for this, what is so crucial for you to understand is that Kahlo's legacy is a masterclass in human resilience.
Oh, absolutely.
Her life and her art were built upon two massive foundational pillars. First, unimaginable physical agony, and second, a relentless, groundbreaking exploration of a mixed heritage identity.
To really understand that, we have to move away from the modern brand and go back to her origins, to the actual crucible of pain where this whole journey started.
The very beginning.
Right. So Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderón was born on July 6, 1907. She was born in Coyoacán, which is a vibrant neighborhood in Mexico City, in a place called La Casa Azul, or the Blue House. And I found this fascinating. She didn't always claim 1907 as her birth year, did she?
No, actually. She often claimed she was born in 1910.
Wait, really? Why just shave 3 years off?
Well, what's fascinating here is that 1910 was the exact year the Mexican Revolution began. She actively wanted to align the start of her own life with the birth of the modern Mexican nation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that deliberate choice tells you so much about how she viewed her identity right from the jump. She saw herself and her country as inextricably linked.
And that identity was incredibly complex from the start, deeply rooted in a dual heritage. Her father, Guillermo Kahlo, was a German photographer of Hungarian descent.
Right.
And her mother, Matilde Calderón, was Mexican, of indigenous and Spanish descent. That push and pull of her European and Mexican roots becomes a massive theme in her art later on.
It definitely does. But her relationship with immense physical suffering also started very early. When she was just 6 years old, she contracted polio.
Oh, that's so young.
I know. It left her bedridden for months, and it permanently withered her right leg. She learned to hide the difference in her limbs under these long, heavy skirts.
But just enduring polio instilled this profound sense of physical alienation in her from a very young age. Like, she knew what it meant to be trapped inside a failing body.
Exactly. However, the true turning point, the event that fundamentally altered the trajectory of her life forever, happened in her teenage years.
Yeah. September 17th, 1925. She was just an 18-year-old student riding a wooden bus home from school. And that bus collided violently with a metal streetcar. The details of this collision are just, they are catastrophic.
They really are. Her spine was broken in 3 different places. Her collarbone, her ribs, and her pelvis were completely shattered.
And that right leg, the one already weakened by polio, was fractured in 11 places. And perhaps most devastatingly, an iron handrail actually pierced her abdomen and her uterus.
Right, which ended her ability to ever carry a child to term. She spent months entirely encased in full-body plaster casts. This was just the beginning of what would become like over 30 major surgeries throughout her lifetime.
Just staggering.
And it's vital to remember the path she was on before this collision. Kahlo was studying to become a doctor.
She was literally in medical school. Imagine that shift. You are training to heal others, you're ready to step out into the world, and in a split second, the chrysalis snaps shut. You become the eternal patient.
It's a completely different reality.
Right. How does someone in that state, confined to a full-body cast and facing a lifetime of surgeries, even begin to conceptualize making art?
Well, it was born purely out of necessity, really. It was survival mechanics.
Yeah.
Stripped of her mobility and her intended future in medicine, she turned to the only action available to her from a bed.
Which was painting.
Exactly. Her mother ordered this custom easel that allowed her to paint while lying completely flat on her back, and her father rigged a mirror directly above the canopy of her bed.
Wow.
Yeah. In the crucible of that confinement, the medical student died and the artist was born. There's a profound quote from Kahlo that captures this transition so well. She said, "I paint myself because I'm so often alone and because I am the subject I know best."
It blows my mind that she painted over 140 pieces in her life, and nearly half of them, like 55 to be exact, were just of her own face.
Yeah.
And these weren't your standard portraits. If you think of traditional portraits from that era, they were meant to flatter the subject, show off their wealth, or project a certain social status.
Oh, absolutely. But Kahlo's self-portraits violently rejected the artistic norms of her day. They were brutal, unflinching examinations of her physical and emotional reality.
So where did she draw her artistic inspiration from, if not from traditional portraits?
Well, she drew heavy inspiration from Mexican retablos. For those who might not be familiar, retablos are these small, brightly colored devotional paintings usually done on tin.
Right, they're religious, right.
Yes. Traditionally, they were used in the Catholic faith to give thanks to saints for miracles or for surviving a terrible tragedy. They depict a scene of danger and then the divine intervention that saved the person.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is a massive shift. She adopts the intimate scale and the vibrant colors of those religious retablos, but she completely flips the script.
She really does.
Instead of painting a saint coming down to save the day, she paints herself as the martyr. She takes a format designed to thank God and uses it to center her own very human, very graphic suffering.
That is the crucial insight. She wasn't seeking divine intervention on the canvas. She was documenting her own endurance. She was making her pain tangible.
But look at the actual imagery she uses to do that. She's painting floating fetuses, bleeding hearts, exposed and shattered spines crumbling like stone. Doesn't that make her a surrealist? I mean, I know the French poet André Breton, who basically founded the surrealist movement, visited Mexico and loudly declared her to be one of them.
He did, yeah, and he was thrilled to claim her for his movement. But what's fascinating here is that Kahlo flatly rejected that label. She wanted absolutely nothing to do with it.
Wait, really? She didn't consider herself a surrealist at all.
Not even a little bit. She argued, and I quote, "They thought I was a surrealist, but I wasn't. I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality."
Which, again, shatters that sanitized tote bag image.
Yeah.
When you look at her art, those exposed spines and bleeding hearts aren't just quirky, dreamlike metaphors.
Precisely. For Kahlo, they weren't exercises in subconscious association or, Freudian dream logic. They were the literal, tangible reality of her daily physical and emotional existence.
Wow.
Yeah, she wasn't imagining the pain to make a philosophical point. She was documenting the agony she was feeling in her actual bones.
Her art was so intensely internal because her physical world was so confined. Which makes her choice of a romantic partner absolutely fascinating, because she chose someone who was the exact opposite in every conceivable way.
Oh, definitely. You really cannot discuss the legacy of Frida Kahlo without examining her volatile marriage to Diego Rivera.
They married in 1929, right?
Yes. And Rivera was decades her senior. Physically, he was massive, towering over her, and he was already a world-renowned muralist, famous for painting these gigantic frescoes on public buildings.
He was also a known philanderer, wasn't he?
He was. The visual and age contrast was so stark that Kahlo's own parents famously called it a marriage between an elephant and a dove.
A marriage of intense passion, but also devastating betrayals. I know Rivera engaged in numerous affairs, but the one that truly broke her was his affair with Kahlo's own younger sister, Cristina.
Yeah, that was a massive blow.
And Kahlo retaliated. She engaged in her own relationships with both men and women, including the exiled Russian revolutionary Leon Trotsky and the American artist Georgia O'Keeffe. They actually divorced in 1939, only to remarry a year later in 1940.
And if we look at their artistic output, it perfectly mirrors their physical and emotional contrast. Rivera painted the macrocosm. He painted the sweep of Mexican history, the march of industry, the epic struggles of the proletariat on these massive public walls.
Right.
But Kahlo painted the microcosm. Her work was small, intensely internal, domestic, and deeply personal.
That clash between the macro and the micro really came to a head when the couple moved to the United States in the early 1930s. Rivera was getting these massive mural commissions in San Francisco, Detroit, and New York.
But Kahlo experienced profound culture shock.
She did. She absolutely despised what she called Gringolandia. She found the U.S. to be sterile, hyper-capitalist, and completely devoid of the rich cultural soul of her homeland.
You see this displacement beautifully captured in her 1932 painting, a self-portrait on the borderline between Mexico and the United States.
Oh, I love that one.
It's incredible. She paints herself standing in a pink dress right on the boundary of these two vastly different worlds. On the Mexican side, you have ancient ruins, native plants, and the mythological sun and moon.
Mm.
And on the U.S. side, you have smog-spewing smokestacks, rigid skyscrapers, and cold mechanical machinery.
It's a stark, visceral divide. And she explores that feeling of being torn in half even more famously in her 1939 masterpiece, The Two Fridas. She painted this large-scale double portrait right after her agonizing divorce from Rivera.
Right. It shows two versions of Kahlo sitting side by side on a green bench, holding hands against this turbulent, stormy sky. Let's break down the mechanics of that painting because it is brilliant.
Yeah, please do.
On the right, you have the Mexican Frida. She is dressed in the traditional Tijuana attire that Rivera loved. Her heart is exposed on her chest, but it is whole and intact. In her hand, she is holding a small amulet containing a portrait of Rivera as a child.
Then you look at the left side. There sits the European Frida wearing this stark, white, high-neck Victorian lace dress. Her heart is also exposed, but it is completely torn open.
You can actually see the inner workings of it.
Exactly. And there's a single blood vessel connecting the two hearts, wrapping around their arms. But the European Frida has clamped the veins shut with surgical scissors. The blood is just actively spilling over the white lace of her lap.
It is a devastating visualization of heartbreak.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How did this duality, the agonizing heartbreak of divorce, paired with a torn cultural identity force, Kahlo, to firmly anchor herself in her Mexican roots?
Well, through this intense cultural and emotional displacement, Kahlo uses her art to make a definitive choice. She is bleeding out the European side of herself, the side that represents her pain and her severed marriage.
Right.
She decides in that moment that she belongs firmly to the earth and the history of Mexico. She turns her deeply personal heartbreak into a broader cultural statement.
She realized she could completely control her identity on the canvas, which naturally transitions into how she politicized her everyday life. She challenged societal norms far beyond the canvas, weaponizing her body and her wardrobe.
She definitely did.
And just a quick note for you listening, we are impartially reporting the historical facts of her life from our sources here. We're not taking any political sides, just examining how her beliefs dictated the way she lived and presented herself.
Absolutely. So historically, Kahlo was a staunch Marxist and a deeply dedicated member of the Mexican Communist Party. Her commitment to anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist causes was a driving force throughout her life.
And she lives those values.
She did. In 1937, she and Rivera literally offered her childhood home, La Casa Azul, as a safe haven for Leon Trotsky, who was fleeing assassination attempts orchestrated by Joseph Stalin.
But her politics weren't just theoretical. She wore them. Remember the traditional Tijuana clothing we just talked about in The Two Fridas? She began dressing almost exclusively in those heavily embroidered blouses, flowing skirts, and intricate braided hairstyles.
And this wasn't just a fashion choice. The Tijuana culture from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec was a matriarchal society.
Right.
It was a deliberate, daily anti-colonial statement. By dressing as an indigenous woman, she was actively rejecting the European cultural imperialism that dominated Mexican high society at the time. She was aligning herself with the working class and the indigenous roots of Mexico.
She was essentially wearing her politics on her sleeve, literally, long before the personalist political became a cultural movement. She subverted norms at every single turn.
Oh, without a doubt. In an era that demanded conformity to very strict European beauty standards, she proudly emphasized her natural unibrow and a faint mustache.
She completely refused to alter her facial features to appease the male gaze.
Right. She was openly bisexual. And if you look at family portraits taken long before she even met Rivera, she is seen wearing sharp, tailored men's three-piece suits.
While her sisters are in their feminine dresses.
Exactly. Kahlo is standing there projecting an undeniable aura of masculine power and independence. She understood that identity wasn't some fixed biological mandate. It was a performance that could be altered, bent, and weaponized.
Every outfit, every self-portrait, every public appearance was a calculated statement of defiance, which is exactly why the tape bag version of her is so ironic.
It really is.
I mean, capitalism took a staunch Marxist who weaponized her indigenous clothing against European imperialism and turned her into a sanitized graphic to sell coffee mugs. They print the unibrow, but they erase the defiance.
Yeah, they missed the whole point. And during her actual life, she faced a different kind of erasure. Despite all of this fierce independence, she was largely overshadowed by Rivera's massive fame. The press would often diminish her by referring to her simply as Diego Rivera's painting wife.
That is so frustrating to hear through a modern lens.
It is. But she did achieve incredible milestones during her relatively brief life. In November 1938, she had her first solo gallery exhibition in New York City, which was a major critical success. In 1939, the French government purchased her painting The Frame. That made her the very first 20th century Mexican artist to ever be included in the Louvre's prestigious collection.
And in April 1953, she finally had her first solo exhibition in her home country of Mexico. By this point, her physical health was failing so severely that her doctors forbade her from getting out of bed. She literally couldn't walk.
But she completely refused to miss it. She arrives at her own gallery opening in an ambulance.
I love this story.
It's amazing. She had her massive 4-poster bed installed right in the center of the exhibition room, and she attended the entire opening lying down, greeting guests, and holding court from her mattress. It was a final, brilliant act of performance art.
She died the following year, in July 1954, at La Casa Azul. She was only 47 years old. The official cause of death was listed as a pulmonary embolism, though some biographers suspect an intentional overdose of painkillers given her immense suffering at the end.
It was a tragic end.
But the global phenomenon we know today didn't happen immediately, right? It wasn't until the late 1970s and 1980s that her work was truly rediscovered on a massive scale.
Yeah, this resurgence is often referred to as Frida mania, and it was largely driven by the feminist movement and the LGBTQ+ community. They looked back at her work and recognized her as an absolute pioneer.
Because she shattered taboos.
Completely. Before Kahlo, subjects like miscarriage, infertility, menstruation, and the graphic physical decay of the female body were completely taboo. They were entirely absent from the canons of fine art.
Look at her 1932 painting, Henry Ford Hospital. She explicitly and graphically depicts the agony of her own miscarriage. She is lying naked on a hospital bed in a pool of blood, with red ribbons connecting her stomach to a fetus, a snail, and a shattered pelvis.
She completely shattered the silence surrounding women's bodily trauma. She also became a profound central figure for the disability rights movement.
Because she didn't hide it.
Exactly. She centralized her disability instead of hiding it. Consider the broken column from 1944. She paints herself standing in a barren landscape, her torso split wide open down the middle.
And inside, revealing where her shattered spine should be, is a crumbling ionic column.
Right, and her entire body is held together by a rigid medical steel corset. Nails are piercing her skin all over.
She even turned her literal medical apparatuses, her heavy plaster body casts, and later in life her prosthetic leg, into beautiful, elaborate works of art, painting them with vibrant motifs and political symbols.
She took the most isolating, agonizing experiences a human being can endure: chronic physical pain, heartbreaking romantic betrayals, the profound loss of motherhood, and she transmuted them.
It's incredible.
She created a universal visual language that speaks directly to anyone who has ever suffered. She proved on canvas that a disabled or broken body does not equate to a broken spirit.
So what does this all mean for you today? In our modern era, we constantly hear Kahlo referred to as the mother of the selfie, but there's a massive, sharp contrast there.
Oh, definitely.
Today, you pull out your phone, you carefully curate your angles on social media, and you use self-portraiture to project a flawless, idealized perfection to the world. But Kahlo used self-portraiture to relentlessly dissect herself. She painted to show the world her ugly truths, her tears, her surgical wounds, and her deeply complex heritage.
Our mission today was to look past the tote bags and the bohemian chic branding. What we found is a woman who didn't paint dreams, but painted her own brutal, beautiful reality. She forged an immortal legacy out of unimaginable pain, and in doing so, created art that truly makes the viewer feel seen in their own suffering.
We've definitely gone far beyond the caricature today. It was a remarkable legacy, but it also raises an important question, and it's one I want to leave you with today.
If that wooden bus had never collided with the streetcar on that September day in 1925, if an 18-year-old Frida Kahlo had gone on to become a doctor as she planned, would her revolutionary spirit still have found a way to change the world?
Wow.
Or was her artistic genius inextricably, tragically linked to her physical shattering?
It is a haunting thought to mull over the next time you see that iconic unibrow staring back at you from a canvas bag. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into an incredible life. Please invite your friends to subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel, and our newsletter. We would love to have you be part of our community.